All right, everyone, welcome. This is session 2 with a focus on asset management. I'm Andrew Blower. I'll be your session moderator. We're going ahead and get started here, try and get us back on track while people filter in from the break. Our first presentation here is going to be an update on our local agency outreach working group. And our presenter today is Travis Kinney with David Evans and Associates. So please give Travis a warm welcome.
You guys got to clap real loud for all the folks that aren't able to make this presentation. So thanks, Andrew. So the local agency outreach working group, I co-chair this working group along with Greg Freeman. Say hello, Greg. There we are. Tried to make him come up here with me today, but he said he prefers to see me from down there. So our mission is very simple. It's to increase bridge preservation of locally owned bridges. And the way that we accomplish that is by providing educational opportunities and identifying successes that are out there, right? A lot of what our group does is we search for those local agencies that are doing it really well. And then we convince them to be part of a case study, or we document what they've been doing, or have them give a presentation at one of our meetings, and then we share that with others. So for the education component, one of the things we do is this intro to bridge preservation training. It provides a background of what bridge preservation is, how preservation fits within an asset management program, what are the benefits of bridge preservation, like why would you do it? And then we go through common methods that you can do for preservation. So all of that, you would expect it to be like a 10-hour training, right? Well, it's an hour and a half. So it's a quick overview. But it has been fairly successful, right? We've given it over 20 times since its inception. It's a virtual training. Actually, did one here in New Mexico a few weeks ago to some of the folks there. And so it's something that we have that we're kind of continuing on with. Another research kind of component of this working group was done in actually partnership with the Bridge Preservation Expert Task Group, and I got a QR code. It's become so fashionable over the last several years where you can't get a real menu, but you can scan a QR code to see what's going on in a restaurant. But I'll take you to a report that's out, and this came out just last summer, and it is prioritizing preservation for locally owned bridges. And this was done in partnership with the BPETG. They're actually the ones that produced the report. And what's in the report? So it really started off as, like I mentioned, there's that search that you do, right? Who's doing this well? What funding sources are local agencies doing? What are some of your typical preservation actions that are happening? And what's the status of your preservation program? So we sent out a survey, and we got over 500 responses to this survey answering these questions, which was, I don't know, to me it felt like unheard of for a survey to get that much interest and response for it. And then I highlighted the last one there. I mean, really all that survey and responses was really going after that last piece of, well, what's the successes going on in funding preservation? So I'm going to highlight the 3 of them that are documented in the report here: Michigan, Indiana, and California. This is not like that these are the only successes in local agency bridge preservation, but these are some different unique ones that we wanted to bring forward. So Michigan is really interesting. They're one of the ones that are very clearly delivering local agency bridge preservation projects using the local agency bridge funding program. So a lot of times what we hear is using federal funds is too hard, right? And it's just too much red tape. And so that was part of what this report was looking at is well, what is that issue and who's actually delivering these? And Michigan is. I mean, they're selecting it through this federally funded program. They're spending about 30% of their funds on preservation. And the way that they're doing it efficiently is they've streamlined the NEPA process, right? So if you're doing certain activities on the bridge and you check some boxes to make sure you're not affecting a bat habitat, then the NEPA process is very streamlined for the work that they're doing and allows them to be very efficient and effective with doing this. Indiana has another approach on this. And actually, Indiana has multiple approaches. I could have a bunch of slides on some of the work they're doing there, but today we're highlighting the educational component. So they have a very strong LTAP in Indiana led by Pat Connor. If you haven't met Pat, he's involved in the Southeast Bridge Partnership and an awesome individual, but they're educating, right? They have these conferences and they talk about the benefits of preservation. They go do hands-on demonstrations, and they've really got the buy-in from the local agencies throughout the state. So it's kind of that champion approach of through education. And then California. California has an interesting approach. They're going the other way and saying using federal funds on preservation, small scale for locals is too hard. So they're embracing that, and they're going the other way. They're saying, but your funds are easier to use on it. Use your funds on preservation, and we're going to have this program set up so you can get an investment credit, right? You fund preservation on your inventory with your funds, submit your application, and then when you go to do a big capital improvement project where you are using that federal funding source, those funds are credited towards your match. And so it's another way of kind of going after it. So very interesting process. So what's next for the local agency program? Yeah, money. We're still looking for money. Every time you talk to local agencies for funding or for what's important to you on bridge preservation, the first question is, well, how do I pay for it? Right? It's great that you're lecturing me on the benefits of preservation. How do you pay? And so the kind of the up and coming or current discussions from our working group and the future direction is looking at a few different funding opportunities that weren't included in that first report. So grant opportunities. There's lots of grants out there. I had no idea how many grants were out there until I went to the private side and started trying to help with some of these grants. And trying to figure out what grants work for bridge preservation is interesting, right? It takes a certain skill set to know where are the grants available and how do you write your grant application to be successful. And so we've already gone through with our process and started to document a lot of the tools that are available. There's tons of search engines specifically to local grant applications and trying to put that spin of bridge preservation onto those tools. Writing there's video tutorials on how to do grant writing, right? So just knowing about the grants, half the battle, but then writing a successful grant application takes a skill set. There's some local agencies that they have like an entire staff that's dedicated to grants. That's all they do. And then there's others that they go, well, it showed up in my inbox and it's due in 12 hours and I'm never going to fill that out, right? There's no chance. And so there's a wide range there. Local roads, local taxes and gas taxes are actually another one that we've had brought up through our working group. And there's some examples of folks that said, hey, this has been tremendously successful for us. We have passed local taxes and with over a 70% success rate. Right? And the reason that they're doing that is because they're going to the taxpayers, they're communicating the need, and they're saying very specifically what they're going to use their taxes for to fix their roads and bridges, and then they've been successful. So we're going to document who's been successful and try and copycat them in other agencies. Reallocation of unused funds. This is another recent one that came up, and this came up out of Indiana. And what's going on is they'll have a big, some of the state funds won't be delivered on time. And so it slips a fiscal year and there's funding available. And the local programs there are making sure that they're ready to go after some of those reallocated funds and using them for bridge preservation. Pretty cool method. So what can you guys do? So the first is I know that there's a lot more DOTs in the room than there are local agencies. And so I would just encourage you to think about the locals as you're running your inventory and how are you engaging with them? Locals own half the bridges in this country. And as the state bridge owners, you got to be engaging and making sure you're doing your share to help them maintain their inventory. I want to know about funding mechanisms, right? We're still searching for what are the good solutions out there, what can we copycat? So if either your state or you know of a local agency that's come up with a great way of funding bridge preservation, then that would be fantastic to learn about. And if there's someone out there that has a need, and you're a local agency that would like to get in on doing some of this bridge preservation and need the funding to do so, we really would like to try and find an agency to partner with our working group and actually start to work through the process of this agency did it really well. We're going to copycat them and help you try and do it the same and try and make that a case study. So that's my last slide. Again, myself and Greg, I got our email addresses up there. I'll be around all week. So 9 minutes, 48 seconds.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.